Hey folks, this is Mark Devine with Mark's Daily Brief. Thanks for joining me today. Today I'd like to pick up a topic that's on all of our minds, and it's a sensitive one, and that is the racial tension that's been plaguing this country. One of our structures that we use to frame our thinking here is what we call the three spheres. And these three spheres co-arise, and they're fairly obvious once you think about it. The three spheres are the individual sense of self. That's the first sphere. The second one is the collective sense of self, or culture. Let's look at this in the context of America. Individual, you, me, we have our sense of self, we have our ideas, our beliefs, etc. And then collectively, there's a consciousness. Now we have obviously multiple subcultures. Then there's the kind of the overall overarching culture of the United States. So that's the collective consciousness or interior of the groups, of the communities and different groups. Like you could say there's a collective consciousness of white America, there's a collective consciousness of black America, and then all sorts of little pockets that cross over. And then the third sphere is the structures, the institutions, the bureaucracies, the laws, the rules, everything that is not inside you as a sense of consciousness or a thought, but is outside, that has physical structure to it. That's the third sphere. Now, it dawned on me that in the 60s, with the civil rights movement, the whole issue of racial inequality was addressed only from that third sphere, from the structural level, through forced integration and affirmative action and all the a lot of very good programs, and some programs that had unintended consequences. And the problem is, as good as that all was, an intention, the problem with that is, without addressing the individual's individual consciousness and the collective consciousness, the first and the second spheres, you're not going to have any effect. And so now, literally 60 years later, we're starting to recognize that all those structural changes really have done nothing to change or transform individual consciousness or the collective consciousness of around racial inequality. And so we need a whole new kind of project to take a look at how do we change the hearts and minds on both sides to be inclusive, to see the sameness in all humans as opposed to just being focused on the differences. And that requires an evolution of consciousness. And it starts with the individuals, right? We have to start the work at the I sphere, but then we have to keep rattling the cages and educating and evolving the consciousness of the collective as well. And the media could really help with that. And right now, the media is part of the problem, if not the real main agitator. Not just the media, but fighting force with force, or fighting against something with force, really actually devolves the situation and lowers the level of consciousness and worsens the situation. This is why the co-opting of peaceful protests for people who have every right to have their point of view aired for political agitation or political gain is such a dangerous and ugly thing. So just wanted to share that. Consider that the civil rights movement of the 60s was well-intentioned, but it really only addressed it from the structural level. And a lot of those policies on top of kind of the New Deal policies have done a lot to trap, certain populations in poverty and it's an unintended consequence. And we need to have frank discussions about that structural piece, but we also need to address this at the individual and the collective consciousness level. And the media could really, really help, and academia could really help with that. Okay. It's an important topic. It's a difficult one. Don't shy from it. Start with asking yourself, where do you stand in terms of your own sense of self on this issue, and begin to recognize any role you might play, as part of our, what's called white privilege, or any role you may play if you're a person of color in feeling victimized, right? And then that's a way to start evolving our consciousness so that we can start to see the sameness and begin to evolve to a more peaceful place. Hoo-yah. Thanks. Divine out.